Good day. Going to talk about making ramrods today. I just made one for my pistol, a new one, and I would have liked to have videoed that, but the problem with that was that I didn't have the wood that I wanted to make it out of. I simply couldn't find what I was looking for, and therefore having to use something else, I didn't know where it was going to go. I didn't know if I was going to be able to make it satisfactory or not. I didn't know whether I was going to have to use a steel one or whether I could get away with making a wooden one. I wanted to make a wooden one, but the pipes, these pipes on the bottom which hold the ramrod on this pistol are very small, and it had a steel ramrod in it, but I suspect it was not the original for this pistol. It may have been an original, but I could be wrong. I just got a feeling it wasn't. The other thing is with ramrods, as was the case with this one, they're generally, the ones that come with the gun are not long enough. They're not long enough for my liking. Obviously you can use them, otherwise it'd be pointless making them and putting them with a gun in the first place. But to my way of thinking, they're not long enough. I had to make one for my rifle and one for my fusel, and both ramrods stick out yay far beyond the barrel. People say you can't do that because it drags the bullet down when you fire, but I never found that happens. Accuracy with both the rifle and the fusel is excellent, regardless of the fact that the ramrod sticks out beyond the barrel. So that may be the case with some, but it isn't with mine. So I set about making a new ramrod for this gun, for this pistol, and I have it soaking here in linseed oil, and I'll just draw it out. This wasn't ordinary down that you get from a hardware shop. This actually was ramrod wood that I ordered from America many years ago for my rifle. That's gone quite a nice colour. That's cool. That's good. So first of all, what I did was I put this whole length of ramrod into the vise, and I marked on the ramrod the depth that I wanted it, the length that I actually wanted the ramrod, and I used this small plane to at least start the process of bringing the size down. I know this looked like a very small ramrod, but you can see that it's still considerably larger than the one I made, so I had to bring it down. However, I didn't want it brought down the whole length the same size. I had to bring part of it the same size, and then the rest of it I tapered. So I started the process this file, with this plane. I could have done it. You could whittle it with a knife, but the problem is with some timbers, when you're doing it with a knife, if you've ever done any whittling, you may find that the blade will suddenly dig in and take out more wood than what you actually wanted. Now it's fine if you're starting with an extra large piece of wood and you're just shaving it away and you're not worried, but I couldn't really afford to take too much out in one hit, because if I did that, then obviously that section was scrap and I'd have to start again. So I controlled the depth that it went by using a small plane, and just by simply planing it off from the mark that I made until I got it down to where I thought was a reasonable size, and it was just starting to fit in to the pipes. After that, I used some sandpaper or glass paper, and continued to rub it down until I got it to where I wanted it, got the size that I wanted, and continuously trying it in the pipes of the pistol to see how far it would go each time, to make sure I wasn't taking off too much in one place and not enough in another, until I got it to the depth I wanted. Once I got it to the depth I wanted, I then took a measurement that I wanted from the barrel. Now I understand that when you've got a load down there, you've got a powder load, you might have wads or wadding, you might have shot, you might have ball and shot. So each of those are going to bring the level up. Okay? So if you start off with a rod that's say there, and you decide, well, you want at least that much to be able to push it down, then by the time you've got a load in there, you're actually up here. And that means that you're going to end up with quite a long piece of wood sticking out beyond the barrel. So you don't want it too long. Okay? In fact, I didn't want it too far past the end of this muzzle if I could help it. So you need to bear those things in mind. I had to account for the fact that the distance of the powder and the ball, etc., and try and gauge it that way. So I did that. I cut it off, and then I finished the end off without making it any thinner. At that end, it was quite thin enough for the length, and it's slightly tapered so that it actually, when it goes into the gun, into the pipes, it's still quite tight. Okay, and there it is, and it's just, if you can see that, it's just sticking out over the end of the barrel. Okay. Now for the end, that was the trickier part of the whole thing. I used a piece of antler. The piece of antler I had wasn't ideal. It was curved, so I had to get a piece out of that I could straighten and still have the size that I wanted when I'd finished, because you'd have to take a little bit off the top of the curve, and you'd have to take the ends off the bottom of the curve to try and straighten it out. So I did that, and I ended up with a piece that was actually workable. I had it a little bit longer than this when I started, so that I had something to hang on to, much the same as working with a full length ramrod when I started. So I got something to put in the vise and something to hang on to. So I did the same with this, but it's still very, very finicky, very fiddly. And it took a lot of time to file it down, rasp it down and get it to the shape and the size that I wanted. Then I drilled the end to fit the size of the ramrod, or actually I should say I drilled the end and then altered the end of the ramrod to fit the hole. I got it as near as I could, and then I just had to sand down the ramrod a bit so it was a tight fit. After having got it pushed right in, and it's a good way into it, I then drilled a 1/16 hole through it, and I don't know if you can see that, and I put a brass pin. So there's a close-up of the end with the brass pin in it, and the actual rod that I made it out of, and there's the little plane that I used to start the whole process. And there's the ramrod actually in the pistol. I think that looks quite reasonable.